Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So here's a newly updated deck profile. It's actually one I haven't really actually touched on in a long time. It's Lair of Darkness. In fact, this is the deck that actually got me this far on YouTube, and honestly, I'm very happy for it. So back then, when I first became a YuGiTuber, I figured the first deck profile I ought to do was Lair of Darkness because the structure deck at the time had just come out. And ever since then, this deck has actually held a special place in my heart. I haven't played it much recently because, I felt like just the format just wasn't right for it at the time, so that's why I decided to just kind of put it on shelf for a long while. And now it's back, I decided to do some adjustments. I actually found some pretty cool text that you could try out with this deck, and now one of them still needs to be tested a little bit more, but it's still a really cool tech just to consider, so we'll get to that momentarily. Anyway, deck's 40 cards. It's a control deck. It relies a lot on trap cards and tributing too, so that's just something you gotta look into. So anyway, starting off with 3 copies of Lilith. I know there's going to be a Malice now, so that's basically her sister. But what she does is that you contribute 1 dark monster, quick effect by the way, reveal 3 normal traps, your opponent picks 1 at random, and you set that card to your side of the field. And that's just like really good. And the fact that you get to tribute your opponent's monsters while Lair of Darkness is out, that's really nuts. Next, 3 copies of Arima. This is the card you usually search out Lair of Darkness with. You discard it to search it. Or if you already have one in hand and you don't need to search it, what you could do with this card is that you can tribute to draw 1 card, or if you tribute 1 other dark monster, you can search out any dark monster from your deck with 2,000 or less defense. So it's really good. Next, Darkest Diabolus. I'm sorry. Did I say 2,000 or 2,000 or less? I meant 2,000 or more defense. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. So with Darkest Diabolus is next, so you generally search this card since it does meet the requirements. So I apologize for that. I read the card wrong. Anyway, Darkest Diabolus, yeah. Great thing about this card is that he can summon himself to, as long as you tribute a dark monster that you control, and also he can't be targeted or be tributed by your opponent. So that's really good. And he has some really cool interactions. One thing is that he can tribute this card or any other dark monster, and your opponent has to send 1 card from his hand either to the top or bottom of this deck. So it's a good way just to generate a little bit of disadvantage to your opponent, so just rip cards out of your opponent's hand is really nice. I was thinking of running Levianeer in this deck, but I could never bring it out consistently, so that's why I'm not running it anymore. But who knows, maybe it'll come back. But again, there's a tech that I really wanted to try out a little bit more with, and Arima can actually search it, so, but again, we'll get to that later. Alright, so moving on. As an extender piece, I'm actually running 2 copies of Luna, the Dark Spirit. Can't be normal summon, but you can banish 1 dark monster just to summon this card for free. And once per turn during your standby phase, you can inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent, so it's really good for time. So not a bad card to consider. Next, 2 copies of Tour Guide, now that she's semi-limited. Honestly, I think this card can come back to 3. I don't think it's going to impact the meta. Yeah, it's really powerful in Burning Abyss, but again, that's really the only other deck that's going to play it aside from Lair of Darkness. So yeah, Tour Guide 2, definitely a good way just to bring out your level 3 Fiend monsters. So yeah. Next up, 1 Sangan, just because this card leaves the field. You can search out any monster with 1,500 or less attack from your deck to your hand. And honestly, you got plenty of targets for that. So you can search out your... you can actually search out your Tour Guide. You can search out your Blackwing Steam the Cloak. Whatever you want, as long as it has the 1,500 or less attack point stat. Which comes to our next card, Blackwing Steam the Cloak. Just a card that generates tokens for you, as long as it leaves the field to the grave. The only thing that's once per duel about this card is that you have to tribute a monster in order to special summon this card from your grave. That's the only part that's once per duel, but overall this card can become a really powerful extender as long as you play it correctly. Next, 1 Jorah Gado, another great card just to run during either player's battle step, or rather. You can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, you gain 1,000 life points, and you can tribute this card. Target 1 face-up monster you control, and it gains 1,000 attack points until the end of this turn. So it's a really good way to just give your monsters a power boost. Now the tech option I was talking about is this one. 1 copy of Raviel, Lord of Phantasms. Very easy to summon in this deck, I'm not going to lie. All you have to do is just tribute 3 Fiend-type monsters. Now you might think, that's a lot of monsters to tribute. Well, with Lair of Darkness, all the tokens that you generate are all Fiend monsters. So it's really not that hard to summon. And also, this card has a really cool effect where once per turn you can tribute 1 monster, and this card gains attack points equal to the original attack of the tributed monster. And it doesn't specify that the monster has to hit the graveyard. So you could potentially tribute Darkest Diabolus if you happen to have one to spare. Give this card up to 7,000 attack points, and it's just a good way to OTK. And again, Arima can actually search this card because it can search any dark monster with 2,000 or more defense points. So, yeah, that is just nuts. And when I was thinking about that, I was like, you know what? This card could actually be really good in Lair. I've never thought to try it. So, yeah, definitely something to look into. Alright, for hand traps, I'm actually only running 2 in this deck. And just on the off chance if I lose a dice roll and I'm up against a combo heavy deck, I'm running 2 copies of Nibiru. It was either going to be this or the artifact package. And I am setting out the artifacts. Just, again, like, on the off chance I lose a dice roll, I felt like Nibiru was just the safer option. So, yeah. But who knows, I might switch it out and just, like, just put in the artifacts in the main deck. But, anyway, moving on. On spells, I'm running 3 copies of Lair. Definitely need this card. This card is cancerous. If you, especially like the fact that it allows you to tribute your opponent's monsters once per turn, it's really nuts. So just be careful. People will try to get this off the field as best as you can, but there are ways you can actually protect it. So again, we'll get to those later. Next, 3 Super Poly. Since while Lair's out, everything becomes dark. So Super Poly also has some really neat synergy. So you can basically go into Starving Venom or Trifeoviridium. So yeah. For draw power, I'm only running 2 copies of Lair of Darkness. At first, I was thinking Pot of Duality, but no, it conflicted too much with Lair, so I was like, no, never mind. And since I don't have Extravagance, I figured Lure was the best card. And plus, the only reason I'm running it at 2 is because like not all my monsters are dark. Like Nibiru, it's a light, so I don't want to accidentally like have nothing but spells and traps, risk it, and not draw into any monster. So I only play it unless I know for a fact I have a dark monster in hand. Next, 2 copies of Monster Gate. It's basically reasoning, just better. Especially for this deck, you tribute a monster, mill your deck until you can find a monster that can be normal summoned, and you summon it for free. So, yeah, Monster Gate pretty nuts, and you can tribute your opponent's monsters while you're at it too. So, yeah. And that's pretty much it for the spells. Now we're just moving on to traps at this point. For trap cards, running 3 copies of Trap Trick. They just act as another copy of Lilith. Next, 3 copies of Lost Wind, since a lot of decks special summon this format. You target one face-up monster that was special summoned, negate its effects, and cut its attack points in half, and this effect is permanent, so Lost Wind is really good, and it has self-recursion too. 2 compulsory, just to get rid of monsters that can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, like let's say against heroes, gotta get rid of that Malicious Bane. 2 copies of Ballista Squad, you tribute a monster to pop a card, so you can literally get rid of 2 cards on your opponent's side of the field if you have Lair out, so you tribute one of your opponent's monsters and pop another card they control. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then 2 copies of Back to the Front, just for revival. So, yeah. Alright, so that's it for the main deck. That was 40 cards. Now we're moving on to the extra deck. Extra deck, I'm running 1 copy of Beat Cop. Just because, like, you can actually pull off our effects since it's easy to get 2 dark monsters out. And it's very generic, so one of the cool things about it. 1 Witch's Apprentice, it's another dark monster that gives your dark monsters a power boost. Just but be careful how you use it, because again, Lair turns everything to dark, and then this card affects all dark monsters on the field. So you could potentially make your opponent's monster stronger too if you don't properly use this. 1 Barricade Board Blocker, just a good way to protect your Lair of Darkness. Your opponent cannot target it at all as long as this card is out. So it's really neat to use. And I always like to co-link it with Nightmare Phoenix, so just to protect it from being destroyed by battle. And also Nightmare Phoenix pops spells and traps too, so it can come in handy. And since these 2 can easily co-link with one another, you could easily get a draw card from there. 1 Power Code Talker, just an OTK enabler. You tribute a monster this card points to, and it doubles its attack points. Next up, I'm running 1 copy of Unchained Abomination. This card is so good. I love what it can do. You could potentially pop 3 cards in one turn. If a card on the field is destroyed, you get to pop a card. If a monster is destroyed by battle, you get to pop a card, and at the end of the turn, you get to pop a card. So yeah, it's got some really cool stuff going for it. And of course, one of my favorite Link Force, Abramax. Can't go wrong with him. And if I do manage to get 2 copies of Diabolus out, I always go into number 68 or Hope Harbinger. But it's not often that I see these guys, so. But you can also bring them out. For sure, you can bring out Hope Harbinger with Waken the Dragon too, so that never hurts. Alright. Now for my Super Poly targets, I'm running 1 Mud Dragon, Starving Venom, Dragostapelia, and of course, Trifeoviridium. So, yeah. And as I mentioned, I am running Waking the Dragon on the side, so of course you gotta play Ultimate Falcon and Naturi Exterior, which honestly I think these two are gonna be the best Waking the Dragon targets, because people are always gonna sight in like back row removal, so it's a good way to punish your opponent with Waking the Dragon. Alright, so now for the side deck. Side deck's fairly standard, running 3 copies of Lancia. This stops a lot of decks in their tracks. It actually stops heroes, surprisingly, as I mentioned once before. It also stops spirals because it prevents them from summoning out that sleeper. It's also really good against the Orcus matchup because Orcus is still a thing. 2 Scythe, and of course, to go with our artifacts, 3 copies of Sanctum. I think this is citable, but again, if you want to main deck these, you could. I'm just kind of like testing out like my tech options right now, so that's why I'm running it like this. 3 Waking the Dragon, again for like people, people are going to sight in like back row removal, so it's just a good way to punish them, and it's just a good way to mind game your opponent. Next, 2 copies of Eradicator. This is just to go against like the control mirror match, like Ultrageist and Subterra Guru. So like you definitely want to get rid of their trap cards or their spells, and also run Heavy Storm Duster to go with that, because like control versus control, you'd be surprised how grindy and tedious it gets. So it's just a good way to just deal with those matchups. Alright, so that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you guys again next time.